an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend Season 1, Episode 16. Josh's sister is getting married. In this episode, Rebecca is trying to do better. And this has mixed results. But for the most part, I'm really proud of her, actually. Good on you, Rebecca. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. What's up, Megan? Samantha's in the chat saying she loves my Christmas decorations. Thank you, Samantha. I've got Pusheen sitting here with his hot cocoa looking over my shoulder. So yeah, guys, this episode is honestly, I'm really relieved. I just watched this one day before yesterday, and because I've been enjoying Crazy Ex-Girlfriend so much, I have been jumping into watching episodes like right after I finish recording on them. And this has had the result usually of me being like, oh my God, I definitely want to watch this one again before I record on it. And it's worked out because there's been a couple of weeks, at least a week, between watching it and when I'm supposed to record about it. But I'm really relieved that this time around, it's like 2 days, because I do not want to watch this episode again. And the thing is about it, that it's honestly a really good episode, and one that I, again, am super proud of Rebecca in. But the way everything winds up going down with Valencia is such a disappointment. Because I almost thought this was going to work out. I almost thought, oh my God, are they going to manage to like kind of be like friends? Like not even friends, that's too strong a word, but be able to like be around each other and not hate each other. And I got my hopes up a little too much. And the heartbreak of that blowing up in her face through no fault of her own really was just so painful and hard to watch that I just don't see wanting to rewatch this again. And I would have had to rewatch it before recording if this had been next week, you know? So I'm really, really glad that they were so close together and I was able to get away with it with just the one watch. It's just so like that there's certain things that I can't take, the like the hope being raised and then dashed. And if you had told me that my hopes would have gotten way, way up about her being friends with Valencia, I would have laughed in your face, because I do not think I am at all invested in that. That's not something that I like really was concerned with. I just thought that was so off the table that there was just no reason to even think about it. There was no reason to even worry about whether or not they could like salvage any sort of friendship, because that fucking ship had sailed, my friend. And I was just, that's it. But they found the exact right way to give Valencia a reason to give Rebecca a chance. Like, Josh's family is literally the only thing that she would care enough about, and that Rebecca would have any sort of influence on, that would give her pause and make her go, all right, well, maybe I'll let Rebecca like try something right here. Smart writing. I really enjoyed this a lot. Enjoyed, but also definitely did not enjoy it all. So, all right, we start off this episode with that moment, like right where we had left off before, where Josh is holding all of the pictures and is asking Rebecca what the deal is. And she tells him that she had some feelings for him. That she's, very mild about the way that she puts it. But she's like, and listen, I am realizing I had some bad patterns. Also, I'm realizing that I've been really horrible to Valencia. I would like to reach out to her. And Josh is like, dude, no, I don't think that's a good idea. She really fucking hates you. And Rebecca's like, no, look, see, I get that she does, and that's totally fair, and she has the right to do that. But I still feel like it is the right thing to do. And she says, I am trying to break free of anything unhealthy or damaging. And Josh really looks at her in this moment like he likes what he's hearing, you know, like he's impressed. And this is one of those moments where I'm just like, I can't tell if this is because he has any sort of insight into the fact that Rebecca has bad patterns. Like, does he really get it? Is he just impressed with how that sounds? Because Josh just is so childlike to me. So childlike so much of the time. That is really hard for me to know how much he really, like, gets conversation like this, you know? But I'm sure that that is the kind of talk that Valencia throws around all the time with the way that she, you know, tries to take care of herself and meditate and do yoga and whatnot. Maybe it's something that he does have like some verbiage to understand. So she says that she's going to trash these photos. And then she's like, unless you want them. And Josh is like, oh, of course not. No. And then he stops and is like, actually, there's some really good angles in those photos that you just can't get with a selfie. And she says, okay, well, and she gives it to him and she says, that's the last of the Josh Chan stuff. And he says, there was stuff. And she says, no. And he leaves. And then we get to see her open her cupboard in her kitchen, this like top cupboard where she's keeping a teddy bear that has Josh's face on it. Like a cutout of his face. She has a thong that says I love Josh printed on the front of the thong, which she apparently never wears because she doesn't wear thongs and she doesn't even know why she bought it. She has a Josh Hearts Me pin, a mug that says property of Josh. I mean, there is a lot, you guys. Now, I gotta be honest. I don't think I've ever done this kind of thing. Has anybody ever done this where you've gotten so like obsessed with somebody? And this, in this case, it's, you know, extra weird and crazy because she isn't in a relationship with him. But I'm talking about like, even in a relationship with somebody, have you bought a bunch of shit about that person, like with their name on it and stuff? Like, is this a thing? I have never done this. I don't have a single solitary thing with Owen's name like printed on it or anything like that. I'm looking around my room like to make sure that I'm not lying, but I don't think I do. Wow. That is some dedication. And what happens is that she decides to trash it all. And Paula is absolutely not here for it. And here's the thing. And I said that I would talk about this last episode, but I didn't really get a chance. I just kind of talked about how Paula was living vicariously through Rebecca. The fact that she was literally like staying in Rebecca's apartment while she was gone without Rebecca's like permission. I don't think Rebecca would care, but nevertheless, and wearing her clothes and kind of trying to live her life a little bit, at least for a day, because she needs a break from her own life. I mean, there's a line where they're talking about how Rebecca is going to try and go back to New York. Oh, and by the way, I would like to point out too, I didn't realize that Rebecca on that plane was heading to New York, guys. I only like just figured that out watching this episode when she says that to Paula. I thought Rebecca was going to Hawaii for just like a getaway for a little while. And because she had already bought the ticket and she was just like, fuck all of this. I know Josh won't be there. So you know what? I need to get away from everybody and I'm going to go. But it turns out that flight that Paula found on her computer to New York was the flight that she was on. So she like bought 2 flights, which, girl, your money. What are you doing? But I just, guys, The fact that Paula is so invested in Josh, and this episode, she is absolutely not here for Rebecca throwing all of this stuff away. It just deeply worries me because I feel like she is going to reach a point where, and it comes out this episode that she is just straight up afraid that Rebecca's not going to want to be friends or hang out anymore because she sort of sees herself, Paula does, as like the friend for a project, but not like a friend that you would just have anyway. And so she thinks that if Rebecca doesn't continue pursuing this guy, there's going to be no, quote, reason for them to hang out anymore. And she says, you know, I've hardly seen you at all this past week. So she has what she feels is some evidence to support this claim, you know. But the thing is that, and this is partially on Rebecca too, although it is not entirely her responsibility to share everything with Paula, I really want Rebecca to sit Paula down and explain to her what it is she went through on that plane, because it doesn't feel like Paula really gets it. And I feel that if she did, what happens this episode wouldn't have happened. She would have had a better, deeper understanding of just like, this isn't as simple as Rebecca deciding, you know what, they're going to stay together. Obviously, there's nothing I can do to break them up, so I guess I will just give up. It's not that. It's Rebecca realizing, even if I could do something, even if they had broken up, I don't think that this is smart of me. And I need to figure out a different way to live. And a lot of the revelations that she had during that like dream ghost therapy session, it doesn't sound like she necessarily shared them with Paula, which she doesn't need to do. Like, it's not a requirement, but I wish that she would, because I feel that would have prevented some of this from happening. And I'm really worried that even after she assures Paula, oh my God, of course we're still going to be friends. What are you talking about? That Paula that's one piece of it, is that she thinks that they won't continue to hang out. But I really think the thing is, Paula is really wrapped up in this narrative about Josh being the one for Rebecca. And I don't know that she's going to be able to like let this go, even if she knows that Rebecca is better off in some ways, even if she understands that Rebecca's like dead serious about don't interfere. Even if by the end of this episode, Rebecca is wrapped around Greg, I just feel like Paula is, I don't want to say more invested in this than Rebecca is, because like in the Josh thing in general, because of course Rebecca was so deeply invested, but Paula was invested in a way that, because of the distance she has from it and it not being her own life, it was easier for her to do crazy things, to initiate like really insane plans, and to just kind of go against Rebecca's wishes in the interest of causing something to happen to force the two of them together, because it wasn't her own reputation that was at stake. And what I mean by that is if Rebecca did any of the things that Paula did in order to wedge herself into a situation, for example, the Chan Thanksgiving, it would be pretty transparent that Rebecca had done that. It would be like what Paula orchestrates to make this happen is a really excellent plausible deniability, because Paula is the one that makes Rebecca go to this thing. So when Rebecca bumps into Josh's mom, her shock at seeing his mother is genuine. She is not the one that invites herself over. She tries to like stop Paula from doing this whole thing, and Paula does it anyway. So Rebecca has a really good look throughout this, where all of this stuff is being like done on her behalf, but she isn't the one that's gonna look like a weirdo most of the time, although she still does. Paula, I think, loves that part. I think she loves the fact that she can sort of play Rebecca and Josh and the people around them like a game, and like pieces on a board, where she's just, you know, figuring out her mode of attack. I mean, we literally have a Apollo 13 reference of her like figuring out exactly how Rebecca can rescue the whole thing with the broken window and the apparent like craziness that she lied to Josh about. So I think Paula, for her, this is more like an RPG game. This is like, you know, you are in the middle of playing Fallout or Red Dead Redemption, and all of a sudden the character turns to you and is like, I don't think I want to do that quest, actually. I really enjoy this town, and I think I'd just like to settle down and have a life here. And you as the player are just like, wait, what? Wait, what? Is that allowed? And like, you thought that you two had an understanding, and you let it go for a minute just to watch, and then you're like, no, oh my God, they're serious. They just want to let this go. What? And I feel like initially, Paula might be like, I believe you that you still want to be friends. I believe you that like, I mean more to you than just what's going on with Josh. But I worry that is only going to make her feel better for a sec, because it's not totally untrue that getting Rebecca together with Josh was an enormous part of their friendship. And part of Rebecca doing better, making better choices, breaking bad patterns is going to be taking time to herself. She had been putting all of her energy, 100% of the time, on putting forth a certain persona, making herself constantly available, accidentally bumping into him here and there, or making sure that she was going to be outside Boba whenever he like tended to be. It is, if you guys have had this kind of crush on somebody that's like around, but you're not actually involved with yet, and you don't necessarily have a good reason to like see all the time. Like if it's somebody that's like works in the building you also work in, but they don't work in your department, or somebody who goes to school where you go to school, but they're not really in any classes with you, you know what I'm talking about. This sort of constantly being in a place where you can run into them, it's a lot of energy, a lot of time. It's getting up and making sure that you look great and not just rolling out of bed because you are afraid you're going to run into them. So you put more effort in. It's staying someplace a little bit longer than you really should because you're supposed to get to class, but you know that they have a class coming up and maybe they're running late, but I just still want to wait for them because they might walk by and we can make plans for later, or any number of different things. And then that's just what Rebecca's doing on her own outside of the like fucking sessions with Paula, brainstorming everything, going over every last detail and overanalyzing it all until they come up with a new plan. So yeah, Paula's not wrong about the fact that she's probably going to be spending less time with Rebecca. I mean, it's just going to have to be that way. And Paula doesn't really like her whole thing about checking out. She says something about how, do you think that I don't want to unsubscribe from different parts of my life? Of course, I'd love to. At which point Greg says, you know, Paula, if that's how you feel, maybe you should change your life. People actually do that. And then he says, I mean, not me, but still. I really loved everything about this because him saying that is totally true, but also he sounds like such an asshole when he says it. And then he follows it up with an immediate self-deprecating remark, which takes away some of the assholeness. So overall, very well balanced. But I feel like that is going to come up again. I feel like Paula and her husband rekindling a little bit of a flame there isn't all that is going wrong with her life. Her relationship with him is obviously a huge issue. But first of all, having one night out together where you do something crazy is only going to work for so long. You have to really push to change the pattern of a relationship that has been, 2 decades now? I think she's been with him. Yeah, that's a lot of work. When people talk about marriage being work, that is what I think is the biggest part of it, is that there's a sort of attitude amongst people who have not been married or been in really, really long-term relationships that they want to find the person that they are meant to be with because that is comforting and warm, and it makes you feel good to have somebody around who loves you and can support you. And also that there will always be somebody that you can come home to, that you have somebody to do things with all the time. All of that is true. The danger there is that you get to a point where you completely take all of that for granted, and even get to the point where you resent the fact that you are supposed to do everything with that person, or that that person is taking for granted that you are going to be around at a given time. And you need to start, what happens is that falling into being a little too comfortable with one another and not seeing and keeping in mind just how lucky you are that you have somebody who does love you, who does care about you and want to support you. It is really easy to lose sight of how rare that is, and to treat it as if that person will always be there. And like, today, I really need to get this done. We'll hang out later this week. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm sorry, sweetie. I really want to talk to you about this, but I need to do this. Until all of a sudden, you're putting off everything that is supposed to be what your relationship is for other immediate concerns. You know, everything about being together, the long talks, going out and doing things with one another, really being together and hanging out and enjoying one another, that starts to be something that you're like, well, I will be able to do that later, but right now. And when people say relationships are work, in my opinion, the work is constantly remembering this is the most important part. This is life. All of the parts about like, oh, I need to like get this thing out of the oven, so don't talk to me, don't kiss me, don't whatever right now. Or I really, really need to get to the grocery store. I'm sorry, I have to go. All of those things that it's so easy to put off the other stuff in favor of, all that stuff doesn't matter, like doesn't really matter at all, really, in the end. Being with that person, making time for that person, making sure that when you are with them, you are fucking with them and not on your phone. That shit is really hard. And it shouldn't be, because it's the best part. It really is. But it's so easy for us to fall into these habits and to forget, because we have gotten the thing that we wanted, that it can go. That thing that you think you just have, that shit doesn't just stick around because you got it. It doesn't just keep on a shelf. You have to tend to it like a plant or a pet. You don't get to put it in a can and seal it and then just pop it open whenever you feel like consuming it. That's not how it works. So the thing with Paula is like, I loved the episode with her and her husband trying to like find common ground and get into one another again, because it showed just how hard that can be. It really can. I went through a divorce, and a lot of it was due to this sort of thing. We each took each other for granted to such a degree that it was pretty much impossible to come back from it once we had passed a certain line. We had resentment and contempt and frustration that neither of us felt the other completely understood, and so we weren't willing to let go of it on our own end. Because we just were like, why should I let go of it if it feels like you still don't even get where I'm coming from? And Paula is like, I really don't feel like she's like solved her problem with her marriage. And even if she has, he's like out doing his own thing still, right? He has his own hobbies and whatnot. She has still been dedicating a lot of time to what was going on with Rebecca. What's going to fill that time now? What is she going to do now that she doesn't have this game to play, this RPG to participate in? I mean, I want to remind us all that she literally had like a video pin on Rebecca during a Thanksgiving dinner so that she could watch and listen to everything that was happening while sitting at the table with her own family, ignoring all of them. And it's played for comedy, and because it is, it's hilarious, don't get me wrong. But like, let's step back and look at that for a second. What does that say about Paula's situation and her life? This is not good. So the whole way that this goes down, this episode, feels to me like it supports this concern that has been growing in me. That Rebecca, Rebecca and her fixation on Josh is like an addiction. And we could treat it like she was an alcoholic. And Paula was the person that she went drinking with all the time. And Paula's not necessarily an alcoholic herself, but she really liked going drinking with Rebecca. She really enjoyed that. And now Rebecca is trying to do something good for herself. And this involves staying away from situations like that. And Paula is like, but wait, that's what we do though. And this is a big part of addiction, is having friends who encourage bad behavior and like having to basically find new friends. And that's part of why addiction in general is so hard to overcome, because it is not just like simple, like, well, just stop drinking. You have to change everything about your social life and the people you hang out with. In the end, that's what it comes down to, is that it is a major change that uproots relationships in your life. And I feel like Paula is encouraging the worst in Rebecca here. And she needs to like figure out not only something that she can be passionate about that is hers and is not dependent on another person, but also I want her to really understand how bad this has been for Rebecca's brain. I need her to, because I feel like if she got that, Paula does care about Rebecca. It's not like Rebecca's like just this project and game for her, period. She cares about Rebecca as a person. The game thing has been super important to her, but I feel like if Rebecca told her, seriously, this was very bad for me, and let me like tell you about all of the things I have realized and why it is so important that I don't do this anymore. I think that will be the biggest step forward towards Paula letting this go for the sake of her friend. It still leaves her sitting there not really having like a project. So she still has to work on that. But I feel like that will be the first thing, is to really get how deeply important it is to Rebecca. And I feel like she kind of gets it this episode when Rebecca like yells at her. And I would like to say too, I was so mad at Paula for what she did. I was so angry. And the thing is that like she has this moment where she tells Rebecca, because Rebecca's like, why would you do that? I told you not to. Paula's like, what are you talking about? Every single other time that anything has wound up working out for you, it's because I have organized it, despite the fact that you claimed you didn't want me to do anything. And Rebecca has to stop and be like, you're right. Now, here's the thing. Paula is right. She's not like incorrect about that in general. But guys, I'm not wrong here, right? This circumstance with posting this photo of Valencia in her soon-to-be sister-in-law's wedding dress, if she does marry Josh, that is not the same as the other situations at all. Like, the only thing that is on par this episode with things that Paula has done before is her being at Rebecca's house when Josh's family comes over to ask her to be a bridesmaid, and her really like kind of pushing Rebecca into it. That's classic Paula. But Paula posting this photo isn't the same, because there is no way that this doesn't come back on Rebecca in the end. Everything else, plausible deniability. That's been the beautiful thing about the way that Paula has managed a lot of this, is that it all makes it look like Rebecca never insisted on or wanted anything in particular and just decided to agree to be, like whatever. But this photo that she posts, that she finds on Valencia's thing, Rebecca had Valencia's phone, Rebecca is the only one that was there and saw her in this dress in the first place. And I don't know if it's just that Paula wasn't aware that Rebecca took that photo, but it just, there's no way to post that and have it not immediately be like, Valencia has this reaction that makes it so clear she did not do this. Like, the horror, it's just, she is acting as if nobody's going to believe Valencia. Of course they're going to think, because she's such a huge bitch, they're all just going to believe that she's the one who did this. And I'm like, yeah, but Valencia knows that she didn't do this. And because of that, it's going to give her even more reason to hate Rebecca. And it's just like, none of this is going to work out in Rebecca's favor in any way. And it's going to make her accuse Rebecca of doing it. Like I guess it's just like, the only thing that I could see about it is that Paula wasn't there and didn't understand exactly the circumstances when that picture was taken, who took it, where the phone was, the fact that like Valencia like went to the bathroom for a second. But this is not Paula's usual plan. Doing something that's just really mean-spirited and like framing somebody to make it look like they did a thing that they didn't do. This is not on brand for her. And I don't feel like Rebecca's out of line to be angry at her about this, regardless of how other things have worked out that she has, you know, asked Paula not to do and she's done anyway. And then it's all worked out well. This doesn't fall into that category at all. She's not trying to accomplish anything except to make Valencia look bad for a moment, and that is going to be quickly overridden with questions about how this could even have happened, because Valencia is going to know that she isn't the one. So I guess she was depending on nobody believing Valencia when she protested against doing this, but like, Valencia isn't so stupid that she would post something like that and not expect people to see it, and they all have to at least know that. She's not the smartest person, but she is definitely like a aware enough of like how social media works, because she has a huge ego, that she wouldn't make this kind of mistake. So anyway, I've spent so long talking about Paula, but guys, I'm concerned. I really am. So I want to talk about the whole thing with the dress and Rebecca becoming like friends temporarily with Valencia. Guys, I loved this so much. I loved it so much. And really, honestly, the thing is, for me, and I said this at the beginning of the show, Valencia can be very insufferable, but they're in ways I kind of like her, weirdly. I don't know why. There's just something kind of desperate about her. You know, she's like trying so hard all the time. And that has to come from a place of insecurity. And at least some of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are people who are just straight up vain and conceited. And that's true. And she certainly has aspects of that. But I mean, the vulnerability of her around Josh's family, when she knows that they don't like her, and wanting Rebecca to like being, I mean, Rebecca kissed her boyfriend, right? It's bad. If I were hanging around with that girl, I would also want to bash her teeth in. She says, I would curb stomp you. I would take off my extensions and my wings. But even so, she cares enough about Josh that she wants to be on good terms with his family. And she cares enough about his family and being on good terms with them that she is willing to set aside the fact that this girl kissed her boyfriend. That, to me, says a lot. That while I don't think she and Josh are good together, what she feels for him is apparently genuine. You know? Like, I don't feel like she's just... It's not like Josh is like, you know, has so much to offer in a particular area that I could feel like she's taking advantage of him. Like, he's not rich and she's after him for his money or anything. She genuinely loves him. And whether or not I think that they are a good match, that doesn't really matter. She is willing to set it aside like everything that she feels towards Rebecca, if Rebecca will help her fit in with his family better, which is honestly like really sweet in a way. And Rebecca manages to like make Valencia look good over and over again. Unfortunately, a lot of that is her talking shit about her own body, which is not the best. But I did really love the fact that Valencia steps in at one point and is like, don't stop talking about yourself like that. And granted, she follows it up with, you're not that disgustingly fat, which like, of course, she has to say it that way. But I did kind of like that Valencia actually reached a point where she was like, you know what, girl, you're being kind of mean to yourself. Don't do that. And again, I just really was like, and the look that she got every time Rebecca made a joke that clearly made her look good. She was so happy for Josh's family to look on her with any sort of favor. She was just really like, I mean, she even said if she gets married, she wants all of them to be, I don't remember if she said at her wedding or in the bridal party or whatever, but regardless, she like basically invited Rebecca to their wedding, which is like, I mean, what? That's crazy. This is Valencia. I feel like this is the second time with Rebecca that she kind of thought she was maybe going to be able to make a friend and has found out, at least so she thinks this time, that Rebecca had an ulterior motive. And I honestly feel really bad for Valencia on that count because she's clearly somebody who does not make friends easily. It's totally understandable. I mean, she has that whole, that song where she like talks shit about other women all the time. So like that is on her, no doubt. But also I do sympathize a little bit with being the kind of person who is so overly critical all the time that you push people away. And I really try and rein that in. But even if I'm not saying things, I'm thinking them. And I am trying so hard to break that and tell that voice in my head that has nothing but shitty, nasty things to say about everything all the time to go fuck itself. But that's a hard thing to break out of. And I kind of liked the idea that they were like heading towards something where they could, maybe go get a cup of coffee and talk about things. And at least, if not be really friends, at least Valencia could see Rebecca as being a tool towards being on better terms with Josh's family. And now that's all shot to hell. And I just feel really sad about it. I feel sad for Rebecca because she has to take responsibility because she can't be like, oh, my crazy friend Paula is doing this on my behalf. Like, there's no way to shift the blame onto Paula and A, remain a good friend to Paula, or B, not still look just as nuts as if you had done it yourself. And I hate the fact that Valencia feels like she got tricked into being friendly towards somebody whom she was trusting against her better judgment probably in the first place. And she probably feels like a fool. So I hate all of this, and it just makes me really, really sad. And Josh winds up like coming to Rebecca's house, and he's yelling at her about how like, you told me that you wanted to reach out to her, that you felt so bad for the horrible things that you did, and then all this is the thing that you do. This is how, and this results in like probably one of the best moments in the show, which is her being like, hey, Josh, first of all, I don't want you barging into my house. If you have something that you want to talk to me about, you can text me, you can call me. Don't just come by. Secondly, focus on your girlfriend and your family. I helped to make your family love Valencia. They are on good terms now. I achieved my goal. Yes, I had to fall on a sword to do it, but I said that I would make her look good to them, and God damn it, I did it. So you don't need to worry about me anymore. Go and deal with the people that are important in your life. Why are you here? And finally, he says, are you kicking me out? And she goes, little bit. And guys, this is a huge moment Huge. I mean, she goes and runs and jumps on Greg, so I'm not thrilled about that development. I don't think that I am getting over Josh, so I think I'm going to sleep with this other guy. Does she really have feelings for Greg? Maybe. I don't know. But I feel like she really could have used some time just by herself. I really do. But this one moment of rejecting him and doing so with no apparent, like, it didn't feel like she had to stop and think about, well, what would be the best thing to do here? It wasn't an effort or a pretension of, oh, I have to act like I don't care that he's here and I don't care about him anymore. It felt real. It felt like she was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, sincerely, why would you just come to my house like this? It felt like she has really turned a corner in regard to the way that she sees what's going on between the two of them. And she is not here to play this game anymore. And I remember this moment in a couple different relationships of like, suddenly something happens to make it all clear. And then I'm in a situation in which I expect to be tempted. I expect to be torn on what to do. And instead, once I'm in that situation, I'm like, oh no, you're just trash though. Actually, this isn't hard for me to say no to at all. I'm out. Bye. And that feeling of being able to say no and goodbye to a person that meant everything to you, that you were fucking obsessing over, that is a great feeling. And that's part of why I wish she didn't just run and jump on Greg. But it's also understandable why she does that. It really makes sense, you know? So yeah, I loved that with Josh in the end. And I loved the fact that she reframes this all to be like, I did what I did, R.E. Valencia, for her and you, and really for her, and to make good my promise that I would do something to improve her life, because I have done nothing but fuck it up. So I don't need your opinion, approval, commentary, anything. I accomplished this for me, and I did it for me and her. You're not really even a factor. Bye. It's great. All right, so let's bounce back to fucking Greg. Because Greg is studying at this bar, as it turns out. He is really, guys, I don't know if it's just gotten like, it's hard for me to tell. Greg in this scene and in some of the scenes last episode is so insufferable. And I can't tell if this is the actor sort of zeroing in on something that he wants to do with the character. I can't tell if it's the writers being like, we're going to like really lean on this aspect of Greg's character a little. I am not sure. And I will also mention, I was surprised that Heather doesn't turn up at all. She isn't in the bar when he's working later or anything. Which I guess works out because that's where Rebecca comes to jump his bones. But his face in this moment is so smug. And he's talking to the bartender about how he can drink and study because this is really easy because it's extension school. And then I don't like to tell a lot of people this, but I got into Emory Business School. It's a pretty good school. They call it like the Harvard of the South. And this dude says, I thought the Harvard of the South was Vanderbilt. Somebody else later says, I thought the Harvard of the South was Duke, because he just keeps on telling everybody about this. And I got into school, then my dad got sick. So now I'm working my way through school here. And says to this bartender, I can't be slinging drinks to losers until I'm like 60 years old. And the bartender just gives him this look and walks away. And we don't get any moment of like the camera panning back to Greg's face and our seeing that he realizes that he made like such a faux pas and was so insulting. I don't think he really doesn't even like, even if he did, he doesn't care. I think he feels so much better than this bartender that he is fine with having insulted this guy. So at this point, Rebecca comes in and she asks him if he wants to hang out. She came here like intending to have a drink alone, not thinking she would run into him. But she asks if she can sit with him and have a drink. And he's like, he tells her that he would be fine with trading barbs. But when he tells her that him and Heather broke up and she wants to talk with him about how he's feeling about that, he is not at all interested in having any sort of real conversation. And Rebecca seems to realize that this is a bad plan. And it's an interesting moment because I don't think if I were Rebecca that I would have sensed that this was part of a bad pattern. I'm not, she says, you know, a little bit later about how I would love to sit and, she says, so here's the thing. Old me would have been totally down for like an old-fashioned barb fest, but I've decided recently that I'm trying to change my patterns. And he gives her this look like he doesn't get what she's saying. And she says, so I'm going to go. And I really liked this like moment of her walking away because I wondered if he was going to like try and chase after her and if she was going to play this like a hard to get moment. But she's sincere about it. She leaves. He says something about how he's a glutton for punishment. We can make bad decisions together. And she just shakes her head and walks out the doors and seems to be like, yeah. And Josh says she's in love with someone else, but I figure 10, 11 years of me trying, I'm a lock to this dude. So, to the bartender, by the way. So, then we see him in class, and he's being snide and superior to this woman who is in class behind him, who, by the way, has a great outfit on. She's got this, like, lime green sweater and cat's eye glasses and, like, floral leggings and this, like, series of necklaces, and I'm just like, yeah, I want to be like you when I grow up. And he is such a douchebag to her. And really, it's like, oh, I found that test really easy. Because she's like, oh, I found it so hard last week. I'm really worried about my grade. And he's just like, yeah, I'm not worried about my grade at all. I actually found it really easy. And then he gets his paper back and he gets like a C-. And he is so startled to have gotten anything less than a great grade when he thinks that he can just sail through this because it's extension school. Y'all, I unfortunately found this a little relatable. I think I've talked about, I went to Carnegie Mellon for my first year of school and went for technical theater. Realized I hated that. Did like a year away and like abroad. And then came back and started to do musical theater school. Realized I hated that. And I was like, well, maybe I just need to get some basics. And I decided to go to a community college in my area to just get some like English and math and basic shit so that I could get out of the arts entirely if that's what I wanted. And my community college English class was really easy in the moment. But when I got my first paper back, I got like, I think like a C+. And I never get C's. And I really thought that I fucking nailed that paper. That I think I even like, and by nailed, I mean managed to bullshit something that sounded really good. And I think I even said something like that to Brendan at the time about how I was really good at just like manufacturing something out of nothing. Well, apparently not. My teacher saw right through that shit. And I felt like a bit of a dodo. And it was a wake-up call. Other classes, to be honest, I was able to kind of sail through. But it was sort of nice to be brought up short and told, like, no, you're going to have to actually kind of put some effort in here. You don't just get this. That's not how this is going to go. And this winds up being a moment for Greg as well. He goes and, like, tries to get an attitude later with the teacher about how, like, well, my dad is sick and, you know, I'm going through a lot. And, you know, I work full time and everything. And she says, I work 2 jobs and my husband is dead. And I love that because we really do like to tell ourselves stories about why our circumstance is so unique and so much more difficult than other people's. And that, I don't want to discount that, because just because other people have hard shit going on or more difficult shit doesn't invalidate what you yourself are going through. But we can get in a habit of using that as an excuse to pardon all kinds of other shit. It's very easy to fall into that trap. You have to keep in mind that you have these particular obstacles that you need to work around, but you also still have to hold yourself accountable and keep a balance in there. There needs to be some awareness of, while that all may be true, I can still try this and that. And it's just really easy to turn it into, like, well, you know, and what happens with Greg too, we find out later, is that, like, he's just trying to not care. He doesn't want to put forth any effort. And he's using all of that as a sort of excuse, really. It's not even just like, I really am trying. All of this stuff is getting in the way. It's really hard. He's not really trying. He is genuinely just citing this list of things that are going on in his life anytime somebody tries to point out that maybe he could have done more. And yeah, she says, your next assignment is an essay due Friday. You can do better, Mr. Serrano. You got into the Harvard of the South, after all, which you somehow managed to mention on your test, a multiple choice test. And yeah, he's like, so you're busting my balls about an extension school course, and is really fucking snide about it. He says something like, oh, sure. Makes sense, with this fucking face. This Greg, he is all over Facebook. And every time I run into him, I just want to deck him. And she says, from where I stand, it seems like you've made the choice not to try or something. And he tries to be like, yeah, oh, sure, I'll worry about my decisions. Don't you worry about them. And he walks away, and she just follows him with her eyes, looking at him like, are you serious? And this launches into this weird spoken word grunge 90s style, like, I don't give a fuck song that is so strange, so weird. Maybe I haven't listened to enough of this music. Guys, is this a thing where it's just like spoken word? Because the only parts that he sings are, I could try if I wanted to. But other than that, it's just, what's an A? It's just a letter on a page meant to distract us from the pain. Like, is this really a thing? Is there music like this? Oh, it's the worst. Oh, it's awful. I hated it. So yeah, he walks through downtown area singing about how he doesn't care, and he could have gotten an A if he really cared, but he doesn't care. But he could have if he wanted to. He could have gotten an A, except he doesn't care about an A. But if he did care about an A, it would be no problem. He could totally have gotten an A. It's just that he doesn't care about it. He doesn't care. Over and over and over again, which is really fucking funny. And then he compares himself to a bunch of other people that he runs into. There's like the businessman with his tie and his cell phone. There's the dad throwing the ball with his son. And he keeps insisting that I could do that if I wanted, but I don't. And it gets to the point where he's comparing himself to a sword swallower. And he says, I could do that if I wanted to. And the woman standing next to him just looks at him like, dude, really? And that's the song. That's it, guys. So I don't know what to make of that, but he goes to the supermarket and runs into the kid that had been talking to Rebecca last time. It's really kind of funny because it's treated like a supermarket, but when the camera pulls back, it's really like a Buc-ee's or it's like a large convenience store. It really isn't like a grocery store. But this dude is in love with this girl who works with him and does not care about him. And Greg is like deciding that he's going to help this dude out because he can see why this guy likes her. When he calls out to the girl by name, I think her name is Allie, she goes, because she's talking to the guy that she actually likes. And Greg says, "Oh, that is so hot. Okay, hold on." And I'm just like, Greg, buddy, you need therapy, okay? If your reaction to being rejected like this is, "Oh, that is so sexy," dude, get help, sincerely. But he convinces this kid to write a fucking song and sing it over the PA system and yada, yada, yada. And he's in the middle of doing this when the guy that she actually likes, whom it becomes clear in this moment, this guy does not like her. He is just not a fan of being upstage. Does like a, what do they call that? A round off? It's like a cartwheel and whatever. He does a bunch of gymnastics across the floor and gets her attention back on him. And Greg goes up to this girl a little bit later and is like, "Hey, why won't you give my friend a chance? Because he really likes you." And she straight up tells him, the thing is that he has been like up my ass since day one. I've tried to make it really clear that I am not into him. And he has just not left me alone. And if he backed off, I might respect him a little bit more. Because, you know, he would let me come to him and it would give me a chance to think about it. But instead, he's just in my face all the time. So can you tell him to stop it with the songs and the text and the skywriting? And then she walks away, leaving Greg to really think about himself and what he's been doing. And it cuts to him and this kid drinking together in the liquor aisle. Guys, I love this. They're just in the aisle of the store on stools with tortilla chips in front of them. And this guy says, what's my next move? And Greg's like, "I don't really think you have one. I think you need to let it go." And he kind of takes his own advice. Rebecca comes into the bar to have a drink a little bit later, wants to hang out. And Greg is like, "Look, I would love to do that, but the thing is, it's bad for me. It leads to bad things. And I feel like you always want to come and hang out with me when there is something terrible going on in your life that you are trying to make yourself feel better by hanging out with me as second place. And I don't want to do that anymore." And Rebecca sits there and thinks about it for a second. And then she says, "Okay, great. Good to know. You know what? I'm going to go." And she's not making a big, like, she's not doing this in a way like, "Well, fine, I guess I'll just leave." She's really like, "All right, I guess I get where you're coming from. I've kind of been there myself. It's probably good for us both if I just take off." You know, I just really like the way that she deals with all this. And Greg sits there and watches her go. And we cut to her at home with a glass of wine. And she's got this look on her face like she's thinking about something. And there's a knock on the door. And she goes, "Greg?" But no, it's Josh. And they have their argument. She tells him that he needs to go because she has something that she needs to do. And then she goes back to the bar and she runs in and she puts her stuff down and she kisses Greg. And he pulls her off him and tells her, "I can't do this. Like, I just..." Guys, I love the fact because he was hanging out with this kid who was dusting the potatoes. And Greg says, "I can't eat a dusty potato." And Rebecca says, "Oh my God, is that what I taste like? I mean, I did eat a French fry that I found off the floor of my car, but..." Which I would like to know where she got her car back from. all of a sudden her money issues seem to like not be a thing. Her car was taken, right? Am I wrong? It was impounded. Did she get the Garfinkel ring back? Like, what's the deal? But anyway, she keeps kissing him. He pulls her off him again. And he says, stop it. Can you please? And she says, look, Greg, this isn't about anybody else but you. Okay? You're not second choice. I promise. And she starts kissing him again. And again, he pulls her off of him. But this time, instead, he says, if this is going to happen, you need to know something. This isn't going to be like a roll in the hay and you go home. This is going to be like 3 days of you and me just ruining each other, and not emotionally. And she gets this like big-eyed look, and his eyebrow is up as he says this. And he says, is this what you want? And she says, when do we start? And then she just like takes her shirt off and wraps her legs around him, and he carries her into the back room. And honestly, it's a pretty fun little moment. I do not know what, like, if this is a good idea. I kind of feel like it's not, but I'm also sort of like here for it in a way. I'm just interested in like what happens now. Megan says she got a bonus check. I don't remember what episode they mentioned it. Oh, okay. Well, how very lucky for her. Before you end, can you please give your thoughts on heavy boobs? Oh my God, Megan, I can't believe I forgot about heavy boobs. Because, yeah, relatable. That part where she's like, here's a list of the things that can fit, that I can hold under my boobs. 15 pencils, a stapler, a hardback copy of Arabian Nights, I think is one of them. Yo, you guys, I literally have smuggled bottled water into movie theaters in my tits. That is the kind of giant boobies I have. And the part where she's like taking off her bra at the end of the day and everything comes falling out and it's like a piñata. Guys, I have taken my bra off at the end of the day and there has been a whole French fry, a whole ass 4-inch long French fry, been hanging out in there for hours. No idea. And oh yes, I ate that French fry also. I will just say that. I ate the fuck out of it. My tits are, it's like one of the reasons that when people say, if you could have any small superpower, what would it be? I say not having my clothes get stained, because everything falls on my boobs. And so I don't, like, most of my clothes get stained right around the tits, right around there, because it's just a shelf. So yeah, I really appreciated, like, Valencia's like, I was thinking about getting implants, and Rebecca's like, no, oh my God, don't do it. And part of me is like, no, don't. But also, if they're implants, it's not going to be the same, right? Like, it's not going to be heavy this way. Implants, because of what they're made out of, and because of the way that, like, they're put on your body in like an optimum position, because it's all like artificially done. It has to be that they're less like weight, and they're positioned in a way that like it's less intense for your back. But nevertheless, I think Rebecca was right to warn her against that. I remember being able to just buy any bra just because it was cute. I can't fucking do that shit now. Are you high? Like, their bras that I buy now are like $75 minimum. You know, otherwise they don't work. MJ just commented, how painful does the hands from heavy boobs look? The dance is awful to watch. Like, seriously, oh my God. I hope that they did that all in one take and that she didn't have to be doing that all damn day long. Because, oof. And that's real. You can tell they didn't like, you know, figure out a way to make it look like, no, she was really doing that. No, thank you. And I you know, it's especially fun for them to address it because her boobs really are up in your face when you watch this show. Like, it's impossible to ignore them. So I enjoy them actually like making a song about them because it's funny. And yeah, I also like the fact that Valencia is like, I bet that dress would look amazing with you, with your giant tits. And that's the thing. People think that that looks good, like, because they have an idea of what that means. But if you have real tits that have weight to them and don't sit up high naturally, they have to be like yanked up into place. Clothes that you think, oh, I need boobs to wear this, that doesn't work out so well. You know, I wear stuff that is supposed to be sort of modest, and my boobs yank it down. Look at the cleavage I've got on this shirt right now. Like, just not work out. Does not work out well. So, yeah, that was a good one. I can't believe I almost forgot that. Thank you, Megan. All right, guys, I'm over time, but thank you all so much for hanging out with me and chatting with me. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I will be seeing you again soon with a new episode. So until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.